Tally ho ho and a Merry Christmas. Welcome to a proper British video. Yes, as Squire would say. This one is going to be a little bit quick because I've only got 15 minutes of footage to talk over, and I'm probably going to cut it a little bit so you get smaller bits and segments. And before we get into the actual video of the Falcon, which is going to trigger some people, and you'll see as we go along, I wanted to say a couple of really quick words on two things. Number one is schedule. Due to the current irregularity in content, it's kind of hard to catch a stream. Even though it happens like once a month, it's hard to catch it because you don't anticipate it's going to happen. So I was thinking perhaps there could be a schedule for uploads as well as for streams, and I'll have to decide that based on the amount of likes this video gets. So smash that like. No, I'm just kidding. It's most likely going to be something along the lines of 2 to 3 times a week. I'll select the days. So the way we used to have, I think it was Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and it's always going to be the same time. So I'll figure out which time I want to stream in. I'll figure out which days I can stream on, and then we'll mix and match that together. As always, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you probably won't know that a stream has or has not been cancelled. So there's that. Now, before we actually go into the gameplay today and go on criticizing Gaijin's absolutely horrible map design, which we will do, we wanted to make two announcements. The first announcement is that there is a series that was very loved on this channel that disappeared in the grand purge of all content. It is Season 2 of Doom Time. And I think I promised that I'd make this over a year ago, and I never got around to doing it, so it's about damn time. So sometime in middle July, we'll get around to actually releasing it. Things are still a bit in the air. I'm thinking about how to get around it, what to change, what to add, how the actual original was even structured, because again, the Season 1, the original content doesn't exist anymore since I removed it. And I have to sort of rework it from scratch, figure out the length of the video and, you know, what we're going to feature in it, how we're going to get around. These things are probably going to be discussed on upcoming streams with my streaming community and just sort of come up with a couple of ideas and then finalize it, create a pilot, and then we're going to get that up sometime in July. Now, the second announcement is a little bit more imminent because it's going to happen in, well, I don't want to say because I haven't actually come up with a release date and it's not finalized yet, but I've got the intro of this video created. It's looking popping good. It's one of those things I'm extremely proud of. Very happy that I was able to get around working on. And one of those video types that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, but at the end, it really makes it worth the while. I've already spoiled it on Twitter. I've given you the teaser, the last upload, the 30 seconds of me being quiet. That's one of the portions of the actual final montage that's going to be going up. And in fact, the gameplay you're watching in the background right now is footage of me trying to get footage. So this one is obviously not going to make it into the final cut. It doesn't include any planes. So if you came here for closer support today, yeah, I gotta disappoint you. But what you're about to witness is hell of a nice game. So to give you an explanation, this is the 8.3 British lineup. I'm using the Warrior 8.3 light tank. It's got the scouting option. If you're going to go for close air support and when you're trying to get footage, I knew that I had to spend as much time as I possibly could in the plane. I've got past experience of back when I was grinding God of War, I was using the same tactics. So light tanks, low spawn cost, early damage, early scouting, early capture points, get into a plane, destroy the enemy team, rinse and repeat. Now, because the Sea Hawk is at 7.7 and the British don't really have a 7.7 lineup outside the Falcon, which we'll be playing in a bit when we die, I found myself playing 7.7 Germans, and then for the British, I decided to go for 8.3 instead. And the Warrior really does work fantastically. At the start, I had a few issues. I wasn't very good with it, and this was one of those games. I'm not comfortable. This using the binoculars and trying to scout and then using the rockets, and the rockets don't fire with your R button but your number 4 button, and it's just a bit messy. And then when I died, I figured, well, I can't take the Seahawk out. I could take the Sea Venom, but that's absolutely pointless. So I figured, what's the cheapest thing that I can spawn in here with which I can do some damage and then hopefully get a plane in the end? And I figured between the Falcon and the Chieftain Marksman, I'm taking the Falcon. Because the Chieftain Marksman, ever since the changes were done to, I think, the Gepard and Type 87 as well, the amount of allocated high penetration shells is like, I want to say it's 80, 60, like a very small amount, you know. Basically, you can get maybe 1 or 2 kills if you're really ammo patient, but forget about spraying. With the Falcon, though, you get 2 armor piercing, 1 high explosive, and 1 very high penetration value shell. So 1 in 4 is going to be a very good shell to use. And with the rate of fire, a lot of shells, this thing is just so nice to play. And needless to say, it hasn't got radar. Now, I know the radar guided stuff is supposed to help you shoot down planes, but I find myself, you know, finding it a bit annoying. And it's not the radar dish on the actual tank that rotates. That used to be a problem. No. Now you have a giant thing all over your left portion of the screen that's just rotating and making an obnoxiously greenish out. I don't need it. If there was a way, I don't know if there is a way to turn off those radar things. I mean, I rarely play the vehicles with the radar, but I just find it when there's a thing on your screen that you cannot remove, and it's there, and it only has a limited purpose, I'd rather not use it, if I'm honest. So here we go, no radar versus a TU2, and yep, that's a butchered, every shot missed. Oh, never mind, we got ourselves a crit. Now that crit, what is it? Is it central gear leg? Is it a hole in his left wing? No one knows. We'll forget about it. Again, we have paid, 70 spawn points for this tank? It's not a problem. As long as we get maybe 1 or 2 kills, we'll be able to get a plane out. But this map, I wanted to talk about this map because I've recently been thinking about it. What have they added? They've added Vietnam, horrible. They've added American Desert, horrible. They've added Alaska. This map looks genuinely nice. You've got these cars. Look, there's a Chevy. You've got buildings. You've got rubble and a pipeline. Like, visually, these maps are very, very pleasing. There's this factory in the background where there's smoke coming out. These very high buildings make for a sort of change in the visual aspect of the game. But gameplay-wise, it's going right backwards. You know, being able to shoot from essentially one spawn to the other, these openly exposed areas where people who don't have bushes on will be able to see straight through them. It just doesn't make much sense to me. And it doesn't make much sense to me because I look back at the original maps, right? When I started playing in beta, we had Karelia, Kuban. Later on, stuff like Berlin was added. You know, even the old version of Kursk, I think, is pretty decent. But what was wrong with those maps? My question is, you know, because those maps are never played on. I don't know why top-tier tanks don't play on Karelia's, I get it. But you still get those matches. Kuban, though? I think the old version of Kuban was a brilliant map. Some of the best matches I've ever had were on the old version of Kuban. But now in 2019, when I say old version of Kuban, I think half of this viewer base, if not more, is just sitting there thinking, what is Kuban and what the fuck is old Kuban? Can't blame you. Here we go, no turret ring, and that's a Centauro taken out of the game because he didn't think the Falcon could turn. This thing's not to be messed with. You know, the Falcon is one of those SPA that I had a lot of experience with because, again, 2 years ago when I used to play a lot, there were less SPA in the game. So the few that were, you played a lot. And trust me, with the Falcon being the only top-tier SPA that was available, we played it a huge amount. And to understand that this thing could go through the side of a Leo and with all these light tanks that are being spammed out, really, really powerful. So, you know, for someone like me who started the match off playing in the Warrior, or for other people that are playing BMPs or Bradleys or Pumas or, you know, or the Centauros, one of the best ways, and this has been in the game forever. We've used this for years. I remember doing it in Ostwinds, Verbal Winds, even Gepards in early game, were fantastic methods to counter light tanks. I know that we're always talking about this triangle of plane versus tank versus SPA versus tank, but there's sort of a third triangle that works within the tanks. So it's like a sub-triangle where SPA will be better than light tanks, and then light tanks, in a lot of cases, are better than heavy tanks if they can get around them, and then the heavy tank is better than the medium tank, and the medium tank better than light. It has there's some correlation, but primarily I think is the comparison between what an SPA can do and what a light tank has its weaknesses that sort of, they work like a puzzle. So if you ever want to go against a light tank, one of the fastest, easiest ways to do it is with an SPA. Now, this is the part of the video that gets funny. This is where, you know, Reddit warriors start coming out. This is where the game goes from what a match is supposed to look like to what a match looks like when you have maps like this. I'm in a position where I'm not going to drive over for C. C is too far away. B is being attacked by at least 2 of my teammates, and I figured, well, what I want to do is I want to have a bit of a gander around the map. Oh, there's a truck, let me just shoot at it. And I figured, I'm already here, what's preventing me from driving straight into the enemy spawn? Absolutely nothing. So that's what I'm going to do. I was looking around the map a little bit, actually. I was looking at buildings, how things are positioned. I've seen some posts, apparently, that some buildings have glass that can be shot through in this map, which, guess what? It's a nice addition. I think that's brilliant. To be able to shoot through glass buildings and go through the other side, that's a fantastic addition. But those are tiny details that will only make an impactful, a meaningful impact, should I say, if the rest of the map works. And if you think about it, fun maps, good maps, balanced maps are those that we've had around since day one. For me, it's Karelia, it's the old Kuban, and Berlin is great, you know, Advance of the Rhine's fantastic. Even Frozen Pass is a map that I actually grew to like when I was playing 8.3 back in 1.69. And funny enough, I think that because the demographic of War Thunder has changed so much, is when I say old Kuban, I have a feeling a lot of you guys are probably going, what the hell is Kuban? And what the hell is an old Kuban? Because that map, even I played hundreds of matches potentially on that old map. Since its changes, I don't remember what it looked like. I just know that the way it looks like now isn't that optimum. So for me, I'm still a supporter of the idea that a good map means you can spawn any vehicle on it and that vehicle will be effective. So yeah, you could spawn the mouse on a big map if there's only one capture point. That makes sense. You drive into the capture point, you hold it for whatever time and you win. But what usually happens is that you spawn your heavy tank, it's stock, you go to the capture point, maybe you get there, maybe you don't, maybe a bomber hits you, maybe an RP3 hits you. There's so many things that can, could, and will go wrong, and, you know, at that point, it's really not that fun anymore. So the problem with this map here is that the capture points are sort of, that they're linear, and the spawns are very open. The map itself has potential to work, right? On paper, it works, but in practice, look at this. I'm just sitting between the two spawns, and I'm about to go on an absolute rampage against other vehicles. There was a BMP that I just blew up. Now I'm waiting for another guy to show up. Oh, there's a DCA 30. Boom, he's dead. Nothing they can do about it, because the process, oh look, there's a Gepard, and he found me, but too late. That's 3 kills for no work. And the reason that happens is because when you spawn in, okay, your spawn should actually be relatively confined. I always go back and remember how Karelia looks like. Karelia being the first map ever to be added to the game. Its spawns were actually designed in corners. So when you spawn in, there's only about a 90-degree angle of access where people can shoot at you. And sure, without spawn protection, you know, 2-3 years ago, people would just drive their tanks into your spawn when it was possible. But again, with less entry points, Karelia has like maybe 1 or 2 different places you can get into the enemy spawn. And on the way there, you're likely to encounter quite a heavy resistance. It makes sense. And if you do take some time and you just think about most maps that you tend to like to play on, I'm willing to bet they don't have open spawns. And when I think about all the maps that I don't like, every single one of them has an open spawn. A flat, open terrain spawn which you can be shot at from bloody any angle. This is one of those maps. American Desert is a great example, where only one side really gets some decent cover protection from some wannabe like cliffs of mountains or whatever. You could say El Alamein, you know, it's not a fantastic map, but it's playable because of the way terrain works and because of the way sand works. It takes some time for you to get, you know, across the other side into the enemy spawn. All those maps like Kursk, like Maginot Line, like Fulda, these are all open spawn terrains. And usually the first thing you do in these maps, and tell me if I'm wrong, on maps with flat terrain spawns, you spawn in, and the first thing you do is you look around, you start scanning wherever you can, if it's late game, to figure out if there's someone that's about to shoot you with an ATGM. And hell, the thing is, if they are, they're probably behind a hill and you can't even hit them. So as soon as you start moving, you lose your invincibility, you're dead. On a small map, of course, there is a higher tendency of a player being near your spawn, but you also have a lot more cover. And cover is something you desperately need when you're in a vulnerable position. And here, players don't have it. That Gepard, he's got no protection. He can't go behind any rock, behind any meaningful, shielding item. He's out in the open. The only thing he could potentially use as cover is if one of his teammates' tanks was blown off and he could use them to, somehow hide half of his hull. But dead tanks, they don't stay on the battlefield. They disappear. The only way that a destroyed tank will stay on the battlefield is if the person who's died hasn't respawned or left the match, which means they're still there, they're in the Spectre system, and they're just watching their teammates. This is not a matter of we don't have enough maps or we don't have enough game modes or we need to put capture points in different positions or we need to change domination to capture the flag. I read and I hear so much about this. Some YouTubers are advertising for this, some forum posts are being made, there's an occasional Reddit thread. A lot of people are keen on this idea that the way that we fix spawn camping and issues with bad maps is by adding different game modes. We're talking about War Thunder here. People are having troubles finding the circle with a giant bloody white outline with smoke coming out of it to just sit in it. For most people, it's too difficult to drive in a straight line, get to a capture point, and capture it for their team so the tickets will bleed. And you're telling me that these same people will be skilled enough to rely on in a more advanced game mode, where you have to capture something or take it somewhere or defend a position. That's daydreaming. What you should be focusing on is designing maps the way you've designed them 5 years ago. Look at maps that work and try to replicate that. You have to understand that this is a problem that goes to the very core of the game, and it's not a game mechanic that we can in any way affect. Players are given no options. We cannot vote for it. We cannot, decide, I don't want to play on this map. There's no option for fixing it. If I have issues with a stock tank, not a problem. I'll just have to spade it. If I have issues with planes bombing me, I'll just have to learn how to use SPA. If I don't have, the right shell equipped, there are things that we can do to make our gameplay experience better. The one thing we can't change is the bloody map. As soon as you click the to battle button, you've activated the great RNG of Murphy's Law. Oh, you want to play your stock mouse? Hey, here's the biggest map we got for you, and you know what? We're only going to give you 60 mates, because fuck you. And until the day you actually get around to either giving the players the option to vote on changes, to vote on which maps they want to play, to give them a selective option, until the day you fix the way maps work, the way you have your spawn positions, until all of that is done, spawn camping, spawn pushing, and other issues alike will persist. And this is the one and only time saying this. Don't blame the player, blame the game.